Now, ahead of the papers to the Labour Party, today they are unveiling plans for a new life sciences sector, which they say would inject growth into the economy and help the NHS. To discuss it further, we can speak to the Shadow Science Secretary, Peter Kyle. Peter, thank you so much for your time. So tell us, a new life sciences sector plan, what does that look like? Why should we care?
Well, you should care because our global share of exports for pharmaceuticals in our country has fallen from 9% of global share to 4%. That means that our country is falling behind, but it means that all of that potential is being wasted. And we know that in an era where we have high taxes and low growth in our economy because of the way it's being managed by this government, we can't squander potential where we see it. So we're coming forward with a plan today which guarantees long-term funding, because at the moment it's 1 to 3 years, so we'll move it to 10 year, where there's a strategic priority for it and it matches our industrial strategy priorities. We're making sure that we're going to create a new Office of Regulatory Innovation. So when we have a new innovation that comes forward from a pharma company or any research in our country or from somewhere like Cancer Research UK, we will expedite it through the regulatory system so that it can come to the use of our country for its citizens, for health, but also for our economy, for growth. And then we're going to also make sure that we make the NHS the best place to innovate, because at the moment it's very hard to get new innovations into the NHS, but when you do, it often stays in one place or one hospital or clinic. We need that spread across the place, and that's why I'm launching this strategy today jointly with Wes Streeting, our Shadow Health Secretary, so the pharmaceutical companies and the research organisations out there in all sectors can see an opposition preparing a programme of government that is joined up from the start.
So this is the Labour Party, if in government, helping the NHS get into bed with Big Pharma?
No. What it's doing at the moment, for example, is making sure that trials turn into innovations that benefit patients right across the country. It is also about getting economic growth into our economy that benefits everyone. Because if we get back to the levels that of export for the pharma companies in a pharmaceutical sector and life sciences sector in our country that it was 10, 12 years ago, that would mean an extra £10 billion of inward investment into our economy, and it would mean 77,500 new jobs being created by 2030. Now, this is good for absolutely everyone. We need to make sure that patients benefit from innovation, that innovation is the research happens here in the country, and that those exports around the world benefit our economy, our citizens, and everyone living here in our country. This is the win-win for everyone.
Peter, one issue impacting the economy today certainly will be train travel, how people are going to get around the country. And, you know, we've had 18 months of strike action and the Aslef union are somewhat scuppering our train services today. Of course, they have a right to strike. They're asking, they've been offered, I think it's a pay deal that would give train drivers about £65,000. Aslef aren't happy with that. What would you offer? How would you solve this sort of strike stalemate?
Well, we're not in government. We are the opposition, so we're not in a position to negotiate. And if we were, we wouldn't be negotiating live on air. But what we do know is that when you get into the room and you negotiate and you don't leave the room, you walk into the room with everything on the table, including terms and conditions and not just pay, you have a starting point that can build the relationships that get you to where you need to be. When the government finally started negotiating with the nurses, they solved it. We're right on the cusp today, in the next few days, perhaps, of getting Stormont up and running again back over in Northern Ireland. Now, think how that problem was solved. 25 years ago, when the Good Friday Agreement was solved, people from very, very, very diverse and stridently opposing backgrounds, which had led to civil conflict, got into the room and they solved the problem by negotiation. You can only do so by negotiating your way out of these difficult things. When Grant Shapps was Transport Secretary 4 or 5 or however many jobs ago that he was doing it, he refused to even meet the unions for 6 to 9 months. That was wasted opportunity that sowed the seeds of deep-rooted acrimony between the two sides. They've got to get together and get over this for the sake of commuters.
So, Mr Kyle, do you support the Aslef train drivers' strike?
I support the resolution of this industrial action, and the only way that it's going to be resolved is by getting in the room with both parties and finding a way through. I represent a constituency of Hove in the city of Brighton and Hove. 30 to 35,000 people leave that city every day for work. This is really painful for places like mine. It is very, very painful for those people who depend on train travel. I condemn the fact that these strikes are happening, and government need to accept their share of the responsibility for it. Why is it they can solve some of these challenges when they finally get off their backsides and negotiate, but they leave some industrial action to fester? What they need to do is get in the room and start negotiating, and I call on both sides to get in the room and negotiate their way through this, because this is painful for those commuters up and down the country who are suffering it.
The other thing that people will be I think, slightly dismayed at is the rise that they're going to face to their council tax. We're going to be speaking to some residents in Birmingham later, a council that's gone bankrupt under a Labour authority. How do you imagine the Labour Party, or what is the plan, for the Labour Party when you get into power to balance the fact, that council tax is going up, yet so many of these councils still struggling to literally pay the bills, struggling to get out of bankruptcy?
Yeah, obviously the way that the economy has been managed means low growth, high taxes, whether it's local taxes or whether it's taxes coming from your pay packet. People have been clobbered. People in the front line of this, the organisations in the front line, are local authorities who have suffered cuts to their annual grant funding, which has really hit them hard. Now, we have put forward and we stand on a platform led by Keir Starmer of a missions-led approach to government. 5 missions. Our primary one is economic growth. None of these deep-seated problems our economy faces can be solved unless we get economic growth into our economy. That means reforming the planning system. It means making sure that we can invest in skills into the long term. It means making sure that we can absolutely be a partner to all of those key sectors that create the potential for economic growth, which is why I'm launching the life sciences strategy today, which is also focused on economic growth. When we do that, we will make sure that we can start investing in those organisations like local authorities who are struggling so much, but we cannot until we get our economy going again and fix the fundamentals. Okay. We are being very honest with the public about the scale of the challenge we face, which is why we talk about a decade of renewal. It's very honest because people know we have very deep-seated challenges in our country, in public services and the economy. So that means that we are going to set forward a plan over a decade to heal the economy, get it growing again, and then we can start solving these fundamental problems that did not exist in the previous 13 years of Labour government.
OK, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much. Peter Kyle, Labour's Science and Innovation Secretary.